Hey guys, so do you remember this blanket? Today we're going to talk about this blanket. Hi guys, thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Felicia from SweetGeorgia, and this is Taking Back Friday. This is a place where we come every Friday and we talk about knitting and spinning and dyeing and weaving and all those fabulous fiber arts. Now, this week, I want to talk to you guys about the things that I have been working on. I will tell you that June has been one of the busiest months of this year. It's just totally kicked my butt. I will admit it has been very, very challenging. Part of the reason is because I bring these things upon myself. I have been very, very focused on trying to create a buffer for me and Leah at the School of SweetGeorgia. And so by that, I mean that we are trying to record and capture the knowledge and teaching and instruction and wisdom of several fabulous instructors that we are bringing to the School of SweetGeorgia. Now, somehow it happened that we decided to film them all in the month of June. And so in this 1 month, I think that we have filmed 5, if not 6 individual courses. It's been a little bit bonkers. But it means that we are set for the rest of the year for a lot of the content that we're going to be putting out. And hopefully what this means is that this gives us more time to piece together all of the bits and parts of the teaching content in a more comprehensive way, in a more clear way, make sure that our videos are really good, make sure that our supplementary materials are really good, and just do a little bit more planning ahead of time. And so it just happened that all the planning happened during this 1 month, which is the same month when school ends for the kids and all of the end of school year activities and concerts and fun things like that. So this month has been crazy, but I will show you a couple of the behind the scenes of some of the videotaping and some of the recording that we've done over the past couple of weeks. It's been awesome. Leah actually came with me to the Sunshine Coast where we filmed Jana Maria Valley at her studio on the Sunshine Coast. And we got to see all of the tapestry weaving that's going on in her place. And I learned so many new things. I think Leah learned a lot of new things too, but it was just eye-opening how fabulous and awesome tapestry weaving is. And we're just really ridiculously excited about learning these tapestry techniques. I just cannot stop thinking about all the projects that I could make. And so that part of it kind of leads into the other stuff that I want to talk about today. But the other thing that we have been filming is a course with Mariana Fruchtengarden, who used to work at SweetGeorgia as a dyer. She came to us with 20 years of dye experience, and she'd worked in resist dyeing, specifically batik. And so when she joined SweetGeorgia, I'd always thought in the back of my mind somewhere, like, what can we do where we can share Mariana's expertise and knowledge with everybody? And so part of that was that we wanted to capture her teaching, which is specifically about resist dyeing and shibori dyeing, things like that, and put that into a workshop and course as well. So that is coming out in the coming weeks as well. Now, in the midst of all of this filming and taping and all of these things that have been happening, I have managed to finish a couple of things or work on a couple of things. Now, one of the things that I showed last week was Novelli. So this is how far I've gotten on the sweater so far. I really wanted to show you a finished garment today. I really wanted to be wearing it today, but it's not completely done yet. I have finished the back. It's been split. This is the back, this is the ribbing, this is the short rope that happens on the back. And I'm just now working on the front of the garment. And so the front is almost done. I basically just have to do this section with the ribbing, and then I believe it's a 3-needle bind off, and then we pick up a couple of stitches for sleeves, and then we're basically done. So probably the next time I show you, this will be done. But you can see this is kind of like how it's gonna sit and how it's gonna wear. That's about how long it is. Very excited about this sweater. I feel like I could wear this every day. This feels like the kind of sweater and the kind of silhouette that you can just really live in. So I'm very excited about this. Now, the other thing that I finished is, ta-da, the blanket. So this blanket project. Let me tell you about this blanket project. So this blanket project from a couple months ago, I finished this and I accidentally threw it in the washer and forgot about it, and it felted. I have a whole video about this, about the entire experience of somewhat traumatizingly ruining the big weaving that I had done on this blanket. And then all of the lessons that I learned from that blanket, I used and applied to this blanket. So there were things about this blanket, like I needed to make sure that I didn't spontaneously change weft yarns because I wanted to. I wanted to be a little bit more intentional about the colors and the design than I had in this case. Like in this blanket, I sort of just changed colors whenever I felt like it. And in this second blanket, I decided to be a little bit more intentional about it. So when I had finished this blanket, I looked and I realized that I had amazingly remembered the stripe sequence that I was putting in. So I was putting in the weft colors in a certain order, and at a certain point in time, I decided to do the mirror opposite and reflect back. So if I started with, pink and then orange and then purple and then pink, and then I did the opposite. And so when you fold this blanket out, it looks perfectly symmetrical. I don't know how I managed to remember all of that, but it was perfectly symmetrical. And I managed to finish the stripe pattern as the end of the warp was coming up through the heddles and through the reed. I wove very, very, very far, very, very far to the end of the warp, but I managed to complete the stripe sequence and make it perfectly symmetrical. I was quite impressed with that. Now, I'd also done a little bit more planning when it came to the colors that I used in here. So for the colors, some of the warps were present from the previous time that I had sort of wound a warp and I dyed it, and I dyed it by accident. It didn't turn out exactly the way that I wanted. So rather than having those warps just lying around, I decided to use those for this blanket as the foundation of this blanket. So that warp was this color here, this purple color. And then I decided to overdye one of those purple warps and make it a little bit more darker purple. And then I wound a couple of extra warps and I made them pink and orange. And so I dyed those ones separately and put them all into the warp of this blanket. The blanket is symmetrical width-wise and symmetrical lengthwise now. This is basically plaid. Now, looking at this blanket, what I did for the weft sequence was basically I looked at each one of these colors, and so I started with this pink weft. So where the pink crossed over with the pink, I tried to make this section square. I wove it square. And then the next section I used orange weft. So orange against orange, I made the orange section a square. And same with the purple. So purple over purple, I made this part square. And then again, pink over pink, I made that square. So that's where you can see that the size of the squares is different. So this square is smaller, the orange square is bigger, and that's just because the warp stripes take up more space in that case. So that's kind of how I figured out the stripe sequence for this particular project. The mohair weft is kind of like the finer lace weight mohair, and the warp yarn is Harrisville Shetland. So it's a 2-ply, 100% wool, non-superwash yarn that I used acid dyes, and I dyed these at home. Now, one of the things about these two blankets is that this one, I felt it by accident. However, the parts where this same weft yarn overlaps with this yarn, it actually feels really good. It feels really solid. It feels like the fabric is bloomed and it's fulled, and it just feels like a good fabric. Now with this one, I have put it into the washer, and I was so paranoid about felting it that I set a timer for exactly 5 minutes and then proceeded to change the cycle and make it drain and spin out, and then I hung it up to dry. Now that it's dry, I have measured it and everything, and I know that it has shrunk a little bit. It has, lost a lot of length. Originally, it started at 2 meters and 10 centimeters, so 210 centimeters. Now it's more like 194 centimeters. So I know that it has shrunk lengthwise. But doesn't feel like it's shrunk enough. It really still feels quite open. I can stick my finger through here, so that's not good. So this really needs to go back into the washer, and I need to let it do its thing a little bit more. But I'm just really nervous because I felt it the last one. But I think that after this video, this is gonna go back in the wash and I'm gonna do this all over again. But in the meantime, I really love it the way it is. That there's like quite a nice light drape to it right now because it's not 100% totally fulled. It is quite fun. I like the colors, but as soon as I took it off the loom, I sort of decided to pull out the entire dummy warp. Part of that reason was because when I was adjusting the dummy warp between that one and that one, I managed to kind of mess it up a little bit. And so it was really messy and I was fighting with the dummy warp at the start of this blanket. And so I thought, oh, when this blanket's done, I'm just gonna take off the dummy warp and then I need to use this loom for some other things. Because I do have some other things that I have to weave. But after I finish this blanket, I kind of want to make another blanket. And again, I've said this before, I don't need any of these blankets. I just want to make them. And so I still have, you know, more of this pink yarn, more of this purple yarn. I have used up all of the orange. No, actually, I still have some orange. But I've, for the most part, used up a lot of the orange. So what I wanted to do was wind more warps and then dye more warps and play more with the different colors. I want to change the orange out and then put in like a beach house turquoise teal sort of color, mix that with the purples and the pinks and sort of like retain some of the things that are going on here, but then swap out some other colors and do some other things. Maybe not make it a symmetrical plaid, maybe make it some other kind of stripe design, but I just feel compelled to make another one. I have things that I want to do with this canvas that I've basically created. So I'm excited about the combination of these two yarns and seeing how they mix and blend together. So now just changing out colors and changing out the stripe pattern, I could do a lot more of these. So now later on this summer, there are other things that I have to make with these looms. There's going to be a transition of looms and equipment in this household. And so part of that sort of is pushing me towards doing this one course that I've been planning on doing. And it's just kind of like, it's just pushing me along and saying, now's the time, you actually have to do it. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm going to be recording a multi-shaft weaving course for later on this year. And I had initially thought about maybe teaching that on the spring loom, also maybe thought about doing it on the baby wolf loom, but last year when I received this Nihilist Leclerc loom as a gift, it was kind of like this gift from the universe that just basically fell in my lap. I felt like the reason why I received that loom was so that I could develop teaching content for the school, teaching content so that I could share this very, very accessible floor loom with people. It is a 4-shaft jack loom made in Canada. You can get them used, you can get them pretty much anywhere. They're just very, very accessible when it comes to using a floor loom. So I felt like that's what I need to do with that piece of equipment. And so the next thing that I'm going to be working on is I got to wind some warps. I got to put the warps up on that Nihilist Leclerc loom, and I'm going to film a weaving course about using a multi-shaft loom, how to read a draft, you know, very, very simple things like how to read a draft, which is basically a weaving pattern, how to read a weaving pattern, how do you warp your loom back to front, how do we've already talked about winding warps, all these kinds of things. So that kind of stuff is going to be packaged up and put in a course. And in that course, what we're going to do is we're going to be weaving a sampler. It doesn't sound very romantic, but a sampler is really, really great because it allows you to see, all the different patterns and lots of different combinations. It's just a way to experiment and play with this new piece of equipment, this new tool. So that is going to be coming out later on this year. So that's what I need to work on next. The other thing that we've been working on is dyeing content for the School of SweetGeorgia. So just finishing up the fiber reactive dyeing stuff. I will tell you that I recorded 2 entire lessons outdoors where the camera was not in focus. And so I have to re-record 2 entire full lessons on low water immersion dyeing and hand painting. And I have to do all of those completely from scratch again soon. So yeah. So that is basically what's happening right now. It is summertime. The kids are out of school now. We have to find activities for them to do now. We are going camping as a family with some other families who actually know how to camp. And so it's going to just be a very busy, full, exciting couple of weeks ahead of us. The other thing that makes July super, super busy is the fact that my birthday and my husband's birthday and our wedding anniversary are all within this 8-day window. Basically 8 days of celebration type activities. So it gets to be quite a busy month. But behind the scenes, behind all of these activities, we are going to be making a lot of this content for the School of SweetGeorgia, so that is going to come out later on this summer and into fall. So I hope you guys will join us there if you are at all interested in dyeing, tapestry weaving, shibori, multi-shaft weaving. There's a lot of things. Now, one thing I do want to remind you about is that you don't need to do all the things all at once. All of this content that we're creating, we're trying to build a library of things that you can sort of pick and mix from. So the idea is that we've created this school where you can come and you go at your own pace. Nobody is ever behind. Everybody is on their own journey and their own path, learning whatever it is that you want to learn. So if we're making dyeing courses and we're making weaving courses, it doesn't mean that you need to do all of the things as we're going through them week by week. It is really for you to do at your own pace. This is one thing that I really, really wanted to stress, because part of the reason why I started making these mohair blankets in the first place was because I am part of Jane Stafford's online weaving guild. I'm learning from Jane as well. Now she's into her 3rd year of this weaving guild, and 2nd or 3rd year? 3rd year? And in any case, the very first year is when she was teaching the mohair blankets. That was 3 years ago. That was a long time ago. And so I started weaving these blankets probably about a year after she published those lessons. And then I made changes to how my blanket recipe is now based on the things that I'm weaving, the yarns that I'm using, the things that I'm liking about it. I'm making modifications to what the original instructions were. I'm sort of like making changes, making design changes, making lots of iterations myself, and making the same blanket. This is the 3rd mohair blanket that I've woven. And I feel very much like I'm on a journey with this mohair blanket that I'm learning from Jane Stafford. And it could take me, 2 more years of weaving mohair blankets, or 5 more years of weaving mohair blankets and doing all sorts of different things with this, because there's so much to explore with just this one thing. And so that's the same thing that I try to share in the school. Like, if a lot of people who are doing the dyeing content, they're telling me that a year after they've watched the dyeing videos, just now they're starting to collect their equipment together to do dyeing. But sometimes it can just take that long, not just to collect all your physical items and your pieces, but to form all of those thoughts in your head, to feel confident, to gain that confidence, to actually put some color on cloth. So all of this stuff is to say that everybody's on their own journey, everybody's on their own path, everybody's learning everything at their own pace. So basically we provide this library of things for you guys, so that way you can pick and choose whatever it is that you want to learn and explore. And maybe you take one class and you spend the next year or 2 just exploring the content that's in that one class. Or maybe you do one course a month. Whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, it's all there for you. So in any case, I'm going to go back to working on my sweater. Hopefully in a couple of weeks, I'll come back with a finished sweater. I'm going to wear this in the next vlog. That's what I'm going to do. So the last thing that I want to mention before I go today is that SweetGeorgia is doing a lace knit along for this summer. So basically it starts on June the 25th, which is already passed, and it goes all the way until August 15th. Yes, August 15th. So it goes all the way from June 25th to August 15th. I wanted to show you the new BFL lace that we have, and that BFL and silk lace yarn that I talked about in a video a couple weeks ago. This is that lace yarn knit up into this beautiful shawl. You guys might be familiar with this shawl. This is an old pattern. It's from Knitty from several years ago, and it's called Aeolian. You can find that. That's a free pattern that you can get on Knitty. And this has been in my wish list to knit for a long time now. But Deb, who is our moderator for our Ravelry group, Deborah Darboon, she knit this one for us. She knit this beautiful sample for us. And so it has beads in here. It's gorgeous. And this one is basically knit with one skein of the BFL and silk lace yarn. And it's woolly. It's got a little bit of weight to it, but it's still silky and drapey. It is lovely, beautiful. So thank you so much, Deb, for knitting up this sample. I'm going to take photographs of this as soon as this is done. It is absolutely beautiful. So if you guys are interested in knitting some lace this summer, you guys can join us there on the Ravelry group. Thank you guys so much for being here today. If you like this episode, please do hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please do hit subscribe. I come here every Friday to talk about knitting and spinning and dyeing and weaving. And if you want to see more about what we do, you can find us at SweetGeorgiaYarns.com. Thank you guys so much. I will see you in the next video. All right, bye for now.